Yo, what's up, everyone? What's up? Here back on the episode of Sidelines, and today I'm doing my Major 2 LAN event recap. There's some big upsets, some big overperformances from teams, but overall, it was a banger in the end. FaZe were able to take it out, and it was just a great tournament overall. Alright, let's get into this recap. Alrighty, getting into our first matchup, we had two matchups technically going on at the same time, but it was kind of just one match because the play-in started. So our first play-in game was Paris Gentlemates versus the Carolina Royal Ravens. These first couple I'm probably going to go quicker with just because Friday was a little bit hectic just because there's two matches going on at the same time, so it was hard to watch both series at the same time. Carolina able to take this first hard point, though, go up 1-0 against Gentlemates. A lot of people were thinking, oh, here we go. Overall in the series, though, Neptune Sib not really having a decent performance, but nothing too crazy. Sib putting out the damage, though, for sure. Envoy having a really good series here. On the other side, Craze kind of underperforming. Map 1, though, really good map from Carolina on this exposure. Gentlemates had a pretty big lead after the first P4, up about 100 points, actually. And then Carolina able to have a good P5, basically get a full 60 here. Continue that all the way through the second rotation. Kind of a bad map for Gentlemates since they were up so big. Definitely threw this one away, but able to, Carolina able to close out that map. Map 2 is Colossus Search and Destroy. First bloods wise, Carolina have 4, was 6-4, able to play their numbers when they had them. Lurk's putting out the damage, although not getting the kills. Probably very frustrating for him, though. Envoy, though, having an absolute masterclass on this Colossus. 13-6 from him, 4 first bloods. He was making the plays, getting the first bloods, playing their lives well. Really good map out of Envoy. Went pretty back and forth basically the whole time. Tied up 4-4, and then Gentlemates able to win the last 2 to close it out. Really good map out of them. Colossus is definitely a weird map for them. Sometimes they play very well on it. Sometimes they kind of scam. Gentlemates is kind of a scammy team in Search and Destroy anyways, I feel like. They tend to play that hero ball type Search and Destroy, so it can kind of bite them in the butt sometimes. Then map 2, Exposure, 8-4. This was pretty much dominance from Gentlemates. Able to kind of just play it well, play their lives well. Really good map out of Ghosty and Neptune here. 1.35, 1.47. Again, Sib putting out the damage. He did have 12k damage overall. Gentlemates able to take this exposure. They play pretty good. Overload, I feel like. Exceed definitely needed some help. Craze and Nero kind of getting shit on. So they were just kind of getting out-fragged. Ghosty with 3 caps. So Gentlemates do a good job in that map early. And then goes to a Den Search or Hardpoint. Exceed having a really bad hard point here. Neptune not having the best one, but Gentlemates able to close it out. I believe it went to a P3. Yes. P3 ended on. It was pretty close for a while. Gentlemates again taking a pretty good lead after that first 2 hills. Carolina able to have a good P3, but it goes basically back and forth, basically tied up after the second P2, where Carolina had a really good hold there. But then it was pretty back and forth, and then Gentlemates on that second P4 able to kind of just take about a 30-point, 20-point lead and kind of continue that all the way through the rest where it was split. When you get up on a good team and you could just keep playing the rotations and just getting ahead of rotations, it's definitely helpful. Gentlemates able to move out of that play-in match. Then we go to our match 2 on Friday, which was basically at the same time, Toronto versus Vancouver. And basically the exact same thing happened. Vancouver able to take that map 1. And then Toronto able to take the next 3 and move on. Toronto having a very good performance here, but we'll just start out with this first one. MVP was Insight. I forgot to check who the MVP of the first one was. I would assume it was probably Envoy. But on Vancouver's side, only one really having a decent performance was Gwyn. Teej had a pretty decent performance too. Everyone positive on the side of Toronto. Map 1, though, Vancouver able to take it. Insight and Jodeci's both having pretty bad maps on that first first hard point. Lunars, though, having a really good map here. Pretty back and forth for the beginning, but then Vancouver able to take a pretty big lead on this hard point after that P1, which is very, very shocking. They basically ate a full 60 that P1. P2, P3 kind of continue, but then Toronto able to get about a full 60 on that P4. It stays about that way for the rest of the time, about that 20-point lead until Vancouver able to close it out on that third P3 and close out that map 1. Moves on to a raid S&D. Kleenex having a very good map. Jodeci's also having a very good map. Teej on the other side trying to do his best. First bloods wise, Vancouver has 6, Toronto has 5. So Vancouver able to have the first bloods, but not able to close it out. Toronto go up 3-0, Vancouver win 3 straight, and then we go back and forth, back and forth. So very, very back and forth map here from both these teams. Vancouver, if they get this one, this series definitely looks a little bit different, but Toronto able to get it. And then it shows just who's the better team. Toronto able to 8-0 Vancouver in the exposure. There's not really much to say. They were just getting out-fragged and outplayed. Vancouver did not look good on this exposure. Overload, Toronto definitely just skill diffed them, especially Joe Thieves, 2.0 KD on this one. They looked unbelievable on this overload. It was really, really bad play from Vancouver. Kind of tough to bounce back. They made the map 4 pretty close, but overall, I don't know how they really did that after getting 8-0'd like that. But Insight having a really good map on that overload, and same thing with Kips. So ARs for Vancouver having a good Scars hardpoint there. Pretty close all the way through the first rotation. Basically a tie game. Toronto able to have a good P5 there to tie it up. Able to take the lead into the P1. And then that second P4 able to get a pretty good chunk of time there. Vancouver this time able to have a good P5. Make it about a 20-point game, 30, yeah, and then Toronto able to close it out and close out this series on the P1 and move into the normal bracket. So Vancouver and Carolina both getting sent home early. Carolina still yet to win a series on land this whole split, so they are not able to get one there. Then we go to Miami versus Gentlemates. So a lot of people saying this was some cheese because Gentlemates had just played that previous series because there were 2 matches going on at the same time. And they were able to get a back-to-back matchup, basically. So they were nice and warm going into this Miami series. MVP of this series was Dan Ghosty, dropping a 1.22. Only one positive for Gentlemates here. Envoy having a pretty rough series. Rencor have a really good series, though, on the other side. So very shocking here. Going into the map 1 on this Den. Hardpoint here. Ghosty, again, having a really good map here. 118 seconds of hill time, 33 and 24. Miami don't start out with a good lead here. Able to go up about 30 points into this first rotation. Actually ends up going all the way to a second P4. It wasn't until about the second P4 again that Gentlemates able to take the lead. So pretty close back and forth. Gentlemates able to take the lead and then continue that all the way through that third rotation. P4 able to get that early rotation to P4 after that P3 and just close out the series. So really good for Gentlemates there to close out that map 1. Map 2 though, Miami, really good search and destroy team. So good thing for Gentlemates this did not go 5, because if it goes 5, it's definitely an interesting series. Metals, Rencor, both have a really good series. Super as well. On the other side, not so hot. Gentlemates only able to get 3 first bloods. Sib kind of having a tough one on that sense, but all of Gentlemates wasn't really playing good. Like I talked about before, Gentlemates plays a lot of hero ball. Miami plays very close. Good search and destroy. So Gentlemates just kind of getting caught out, and go up 1-0, lose 4 straight, win 2, lose the last 2, close it out. Then goes to an exposure, search and destroy, or overload, where Gentlemates able to take a 4-3. Goes to with a 1.68, so really good map from him. We're missing a cap. Oh, it went to OT. That's right. Went to overtime. Super 1.68. So this is really a map between Ghosty and Super here. Really close back and forth. Goes into an overtime. Gentlemates able to close it out into the overtime. So really, really good out of them. Tough series though from Miami, just because this was very close to being back and forth. Map 1, they had the lead, had an opportunity to take it. Map 3 goes into an overtime, so definitely could have went their way for the overtime. So they end up losing that one. Not much to say about that overload, just because it was so back and forth. And then map 4 goes into an exposure search or hardpoint. Jeez, I'm brain farting. Rencor with a 1.71, putting out 4,500 damage, and Trakes with a 1.35. Basically all of Gentlemates negative, and Gentlemates able to close it out. This was back and forth the whole time. Ends up going to a P2, and this one, again, Miami definitely could have won it. They had the rotation to P2, and Gentlemates are able to break in and close out this map on that P2. So Definitely a tough one for Miami because this was definitely a winnable series. This last map, for both the first map hardpoint and the second hardpoint were close, and the overload went to overtime. The only map they won was the search and destroy, so not able to close out on those respawns. But if they were able to close out one of those, this possibly goes to a map 5 and they win this one. But that moves Gentlemates on into the bracket, and Miami goes down into losers bracket. Then we have LA Thieves versus FaZe Vegas. This one ends up going to a map 5. Reverse sweep out of FaZe here, who actually end up being the champions of Major 2. But we'll start out with the map 1. Well, MVP of the series is Simp, not surprising. Dude drops 1.34 with 122 kills. Scrap on the other side, trying to do his thing, putting out 14,000 damage. Hydra, 13,000 damage. So, definitely good performance from Scrap. Draza, though, also not going to underlook him with 1,100 damage, but 110 kills. Map 1, Thieves are able to take that Den hardpoint 250 to 231. Really good map from Neum and Scrap here. Again, Draza and Simp on the other side. FaZe choked hard. They went up 110 points and just let Thieves keep chipping away. And it was pretty close. Like, it was 110 points, or basically, 110 points after that first rotation. Thieves able to chip a little bit away on that P1, and then they just slowly kept coming back. And then that that third P2 was where Thieves really brought it close. Like, it's a 60 point game here. You're still thinking you're fine. Thieves able to basically get 50 points on that third P2 here. It gets really mixy on that P1 or P3, and then it goes all the way to a P4, and Thieves are able to take it. FaZe definitely won this one back. If they lost this series, they would definitely have been thinking about this map particularly, because this is a bad loss. They had this one in the bag, up 110 points, and you just let this team chip away. Definitely not something you want to be doing against a team like Thieves. Then map 2 was pretty dominant out of Thieves, 6-1 for them. Only one negative was a BZ, but still only 2-4. Not too crazy. Neum, Scrap, and Hydra only dying 2 times, so out of them, just unbelievable. On the other side, everyone negative. 1-7 from Simp, not very characteristic of him. And they have 2 first bloods, so they were throwing away their lives when they got them, since they only had 1 round win. But Thieves definitely played this search and destroy very, very well in the Scar search. So good map out of them. Then it goes to a Den overload, and FaZe were pretty much in control of this one. Abuza with 4 captures. They just looked a lot more dominant on this one, especially Simp. Simp and 04 were definitely in their base a lot on this map. It seemed like Hydra and BZ couldn't get the same thing going other way. So, really good map out of FaZe to make this a 5-2 victory for them and go up, make it a 1-2 series to go to that Scar hardpoint. The Scar hardpoint, Scrap only one positive, everyone else on Thieves negative. Booza the only one negative on the side of FaZe, but Simp again having another dominant map, 43 and 30. Pretty back and forth. Thieves again having a pretty hot start, kind of the opposite of the map 1. Able to go up about 70 points after that second P2. But then FaZe able to kind of chain a P3, P4 together. Goes into P5, basically tie game. P2s are what are the make or break hill, to be honest. They are the hill that you can get a lot of time on. You can get a lot of time on any hill on Scar, but P2 and P5 tend to be the money hills. The second rotation was basically tied up. Largest lead was about 30 points from Thieves on that second rotation after that P3. But again, goes back into a P2, basically tie game after the P1, and FaZe able to basically just clearly shut out Thieves from any time on that P2 to close out that map 4, make it a 2-2 series, going into map 5, into a Den search and destroy. And this Den search and destroy, FaZe was just all over Thieves. They looked just unbelievable. Hydra was trying his absolute best. He lost the 1v1 to 04, I believe. That definitely could have changed things. But Scrap was not really playing his best map, I'm going to be honest. 5 kills, still not bad. But Neum and Abizi also not doing their thing. They just kind of looked like they were getting picked, especially the later rounds. It was 3-2 Thieves. Then FaZe win 4 straight. These last three, it seemed like FaZe kind of were just dominant. They kept going down in lives, Thieves, and FaZe just kept using those numbers very, very well to win this one out. Really good map ad draws and Simp here. They had a really good overall series, but really good out of them. And they reverse sweep them to go 3-2 and move on into the bracket, and Thieves head down to losers. Then we go to our next match on Friday, which was OpTic versus Toronto, and this was a 3-0 in favor of OpTic. Pretty dominant match for OpTic. It was somewhat close, but overall not really. Mercury's the MVP of the series. He's going 66 and 49, 1.35 with 8.7k damage. On the other side, CleanX trying his best. Kips and Insight having a really bad map. Or just series in general against OpTic. Kips talked about it a little bit in the interview they had later down the line, that he felt like he underperformed against OpTic, might have got a little bit nervous. But OpTic able to close out this map 1, even though Kips and Insight were both getting shit on. This was a close map, so really weird. Insight with only 2.8k damage, even though it was a close map. Somehow Toronto was able to keep it close. And it was kind of the whole thought process was that OpTic was kind of just world starring, especially Shotzzy, and it was still a close map. So it was really weird that was close, even though OpTic was outperforming them. It seemed like OpTic was playing a little scammy just because it seemed like they might have been just world starring them. So they were like, oh, let's keep world starring them. But, you know, Toronto able to get the kills that they needed to kind of win the map in a way. It seemed like they were just getting the right kills at the right time, which kind of made the map a little bit closer. But other than that, OpTic was kind of just world starring them. So OpTic able to pull out that map 1 by 30 points. Not the cleanest map 1, but still a win. Definitely something they probably went back over. Raid S&D was just complete OpTic dominance. Mercury's 13 and 2, 6.5 KD. Yeah, this one's not much to talk about. Toronto looked very lost. OpTic looked like they could just do no wrong on this map. Dashy and Merc were doing their thing for sure together on this map. But yeah, they definitely just was a weird map for both teams, or for Toronto. They did not look like they had a game plan whatsoever, and OpTic looked like they were just kind of in control of the map the whole time. Then we go on to our exposure overload, and OpTic's able to close out the map in the 3-0 fashion here. Dashy with a really good map on this overload. CleanX on the other side trying his best, but again, Kip's not really having the best performance. Shotzzy not really so either, but OpTic able to take this one. Pretty close. I think Toronto was up 5-4 if I'm not mistaken with a few minutes left, and then OpTic were able to chain 2 kind of like the last minute to close this one out and take it 3-0 and move on, sending Toronto down to losers bracket. And then we have G2 versus Falcons. G2 able to take this one in 3-0 fashion. Kremp with an absolute great series on a 1.26. On the other side, Xnid only one negative. Not really the best performance from him. Definitely an underperformance. He posted something on Twitter about how he felt like he didn't perform. And that's kind of been the general consensus, I feel like, with this team, is that Xnid on LAN hasn't been great, but online he's been unbelievable. But their team in general online have been definitely better than on LAN. I think they've won 1 series on LAN so far this year, getting top 8 at the last one, and then again another top 8. So definitely underperforming from the caliber of team, especially the way they're showing online. You know, they beat OpTic right before the major online, and then they come into this and they get double losses. So definitely not the performance they were looking for. Map 1, 250 to 228. Similar kind of predicament have we seen on Den all year. As they're absolute bang on maps and they always end on P4, it seems like. But after the first rotation, G2 able to be up 80 points into that first rotation, and then Falcons able to slowly chip away. They started getting their footing and making a comeback for sure on this first map. They definitely started catching momentum, and Falcons is that type of team. Going into that, second rotation, it's 15-point game for G2. Falcons able to chain a P1, but they had a really good, this just boom, jump right here, 80-point difference to G2's about 10 points, 15 points, was a huge change for them. Even this first rotation, the P1, P2 for Falcons was also very good. Then they have a really good P3, but then it goes to the P4, and G2 are able to close out on that P4 with it, which was an absolute just bang out P4. Really tough loss for Falcons because it was definitely winnable, but G2 definitely made it closer than it had to be. They really had their foot on the gas at the beginning, and then they kind of let it go away. Then it goes to a map 2 on the overload. or exposure, search, and destroy. And G2 was kind of just in control of this one. Nothing too crazy though from the G2 side. 7-6, 7-5, 6-6, 6-3. So Sky's having the best KD, but realistically, nothing too crazy. 5 first bloods versus 3 first bloods. So Falcons only thrown away 1 life, but Falcons did not look as coordinated. Pred 2-7, kind of just getting caught. I don't know if it shows who got first blooded on this. I know on the CDL one they do. I wouldn't be surprised if Pred was a couple of the first bloods, just based on the 2-7. I don't know if it was this team, but there was a team that someone seemed. Oh no, it was Toronto. I forget what series it was, but Kips just kept seeming like he was the last alive, like always. Well, it might have been the OpTic series in the search and destroy, so it was a little weird. But Falcons able to take round 1, G2 go up 2-1, and then 2-2, and then they win 4 straight to close it out. And then it goes to exposure, overload, and G2 able to take this one. This was a really good map out of Kremp here, 29-18 on the other side. Pred 1.36. Exton having a tough overload on this one. Falcons a pretty good overload team, so surprising that they lost it, and they're a pretty good exposure overload team as well. So another reason that it was pretty shocking that they lost this one, just because they're a pretty good exposure overload team, but just overload team in general. But G2 able to take it. They looked like they had a little bit more control on the map, a little bit more teamwork and pacing. Pretty even on kills wise. 1.61 though, definitely helping out for sure. But G2 just able to close it out. I picked G2 to win that one, so not too bad. We will go over my bracket at the end. I think my bracket was pretty bad after that first day. But then we go on to our losers bracket, Miami versus Thieves. Miami getting double rounded here. And this was not really close. The exposure was the closest map, but all Miami negative. Not surprising at all. 0.69 for Trakes. On the other side, Abizi and Scrap both doing their thing. Abizi MVP of this series. 8k damage for Hydra though with the subs. Pretty impressive. Map 1 though, 250 to 141. Abizi with a 1.89. Just pretty dominant out of Thieves on this den hardpoint. They're up 80 points after that first rotation. Even after the second rotation, they really good P4s here. About a 50 point P4, and then about a 60 point or 40-50 point P4 on the second one. So basically 100 points on P4 alone. Other than that, they were pretty mixy, but that just gives them that gap and able to close it out on that P2. These looked really dominant on this first hard point on this first map. Miami just kind of looked a little lost, a little slow. They look like they have a lot more pace online and just a little bit more confident for some reason. And at the major, they did not look that way at all. Goes into our map 2, where Thieves are able to take it 6-1 again. So Thieves really dominant search and destroy in these first 2 series. Even though, losing to FaZe in that first series, but the first hard point looked dominant as well. Abizi 3-4, Hydra though 11-5, able to basically take, I think it was 5 in a row. I think it was 1-1, and then they just won 5. Or no, it was 4-0, 4-1, 6-1. I believe is the way it was. Not really seeing it here, but I believe that was how the map ended up. 1 first blood for Miami, not going to cut it at all. And then it goes to the exposure overload. This was pretty similar to the rest of them. Thieves just looked a lot better, a lot more coordinated. Scrap with 3 caps, Abizi with 2 caps, so doing their thing out here. But Thieves just looked like the better team in this series. Again, Miami just looked a little slow and uncoordinated. They didn't look really teamwork-like. They didn't look together as well as they normally do. And that just showed for sure on this series. Double first round and not a good performance from them. Our last map on Friday was Toronto versus Falcons. Pretty similar to the G2 series, or to the Thieves series, pretty dominant out of them. Exposure, hardpoint. This one's going to be taken by Koi 3-0. Joe Deceives, definitely the MVP of the series. Map 1, though, Joe Deceives, 32-18, 1.78. And again, this one was not really close. P3 was the best hold that really Falcons had. 44 points, ended with 105, or 104, so ended up getting 60 points and 7 hills after that, so not really a good hold for them. Only one they really kept mixy was the P1 on that second rotation, But other than that, this was all Toronto, especially in that second rotation. They basically just chained 4 hills in a row. But even the last 2 hills of that second rotation, that P4, P5 is a deadly combination. Normally if you have a P3, you can kind of flip them into the back at the end of the P3, like Falcons had the control of P3, but Toronto able to get that control, that P4, chain that P4 to P5. P1's always pretty mixy, so not surprising. But then they chain a P2, P3, P4, P5 all together to close out that first one. Goes into Colossus Search and Destroy. And again, Falcons just looked a little bit lost, a little bit uncoordinated. Definitely did not have a game plan on this Colossus Search and Destroy. Kip's able to have a very dominant map. 3 first bloods, 9 and 5. Really good map out of him. Joe Deceives, 2.67. But I personally thought Kips played this map very, very well. Able to find those first bloods, use those numbers to win out this map. And, Toronto used their numbers well. They're not a scamming team. They definitely try to play their numbers well. They did it against Thieves later on Sunday. They just use their numbers well and get those rounds that they don't throw. They don't scam, that's for sure. They play very safe, especially on Colossus. Then it goes to Exposure. Overload. This really good map out of Insight here. On the other side, really no one really doing their thing. Kismet 10 and 23, Extant 15 and 21. This one was over, I want to say like 4 minutes left in the game, something like that. Like it was realistically like a minute and a half that it was over, but this one seemed over for a while. I want to say like they were just in control of the map pretty well. I think the first half was close, but then after that, it wasn't really close. And Toronto just seemed like they had control of the map for a pretty good portion of the map here. I believe they had a few streaks that they ended up using, and after though, like they had like a 4-10 and then streaked, and then they capped another one, and it was like 4-2. And after that, it was like, all right, this is pretty much over. Kismet with the 4.43, not really great out of him. But that completed our Friday. Then Friday had a lot of matches just because of the play-in, so pretty decent amount of matches. But then we go to our Saturday, our winners, first round of winners here. FaZe able to beat Gentlemates 3-0. Gentlemates losing that first exposure, 250. Boozer the MVP, having a really good map from him. Draza, though, also having a good map, so the AR is having a great map. All of Gentlemates negative. Neptune did not really have a great series this series. So, unfortunate for them. 0.59 in that first hard point. Definitely showed. Abuza, though, with a 1.73, having a great map that first map. 0.45 kills. They just looked very well. It was a close map the whole time, so it was really weird that it was close because it was like, wow, they're getting shit on, but it's still somehow close. And just FaZe able to just have a really good P2. That was kind of it. It was close until this P1. And then that P2, FaZe, they just pushed up the map. Like, they got pushed up so far. Like, they got, one good 4 dead. And Gentlemates were spawning on P4 side. And FaZe were all P3. Someone was hard blocking. Someone was on time. And then they're I think it was Simp and a boot 04 or something like that. Or Draza maybe. Were just pushed up like crazy. Up solar. Near, that tank. That armored truck. And they were just in their spawn the whole time. Popping pieces. It was just 4 dead after 4 dead. Even if someone got through, he was getting traded. It was pretty tough. They get 189, so about 50 points, and then it goes to a P3. So, it goes to a P3, but I think FaZe had the rotation. Gentlemates didn't even step foot on the time. And really good out of them. Then it goes to a raid, and it's 6-0. Abuza had 1 and 2. He literally didn't see anyone. The only kill he had was a first blood, and it was probably a snipe. Ghosty with a donut. Sib 1 and 6, so nothing really to say much here for this, raid S&D. It was pretty dominant out of the side of FaZe. They just looked better. There's not much else to say. Goes to the exposure overload. This one almost goes into an overtime. This is actually a bang out map. FaZe were up 3-1 with about a minute and a half left. Gentlemates able to get a second cap with about 30-ish seconds, I want to say. And then they pick up the bomb right before overtime, like the extended time, and almost able to get it in. They get a two-piece, but I think it was Abuza and Draza are able to stop that last push to make it, they got a 2 dead. It's a 4v2, and they're able to kill the bomb carrier and it just stop the time and go win that 1-3-2 and move on into the winners. And Gentlemates fall to losers. Then we have OpTic versus G2. This is another 3-0. Pretty dominant out of OpTic here. Not much else to say. Pretty similar to the FaZe series. MVP was Dashy with a 1.41. Pretty bad series from G2. They did not look coordinated at all. Played Den hard point on the first one. Merc with a 1.71. Just unbelievably dominant. OpTic after the first rotation's up 120 points. Which is just a tough map. Like, I remember watching it and I was like, dude, this is insane. Like, this is just not close. Like, realistically, that's what it was. It was just not really close. OpTic just looked like the better team, and they were the better team. They are the better team. But I thought G2 was going to put up a little bit more of a fight, than they did, but they didn't. So, unfortunate. But OpTic able to be up 140 points. People are talking about how they wanted a 100-point club them, but G2 able to get a few points in that first P1, on the third P1, and stop that 100-point club from happening. But it was pretty dominant. OpTic was just ahead of rotations, just kind of world starring them. They were all doing their own thing. Rotating ahead, popping pieces. It was just a pretty easy map for them. Everything was kind of going their way. They played Raid S&D again, which G2 is normally a good Raid S&D team. G2 able to find 4 first bloods, but not able to stop OpTic. They do throw away their life. The most notable one is they lose a 3v2, I think, to Shotzi and Dashy. Shotzi had a great search and destroy here. He finds one mid-cut. He goes top bedroom, finds another one off bomb, and then they're able to get the last one to close it out here. Well, not close it out, but win that round. OpTic going with 4 first bloods, or G2 with 4 first bloods. You got to use those numbers well. I think one of them, though, was just kind of a tradable one. It was like a 1-for-1. So, you get the first blood, but it's not real first blood. That's the problem with search and destroy and first bloods, especially on a map like Raid with the middle hit sometimes. Colossus is another one that first bloods don't always show the true story. Is that you get it, but then you get instant traded, and it's a 3v3. But technically, you got the first blood. There was one of those in this one as well. The 3v2 that they lost was definitely you just can't be losing a 3v2. But good map out of OpTic on that raid. They play that map so well. They wrap the bomb back well. They're just a really good search and destroy team. Then it goes to the Den Overload, and this one was pretty similar. There are a few times where OpTic, they don't scam, but they live or die with Shotzi getting pushed up, Hook getting pushed up. And I think one of the caps was one of those situations where OpTic just got a little bit pushed up too far, and I think they were on bad side technically for the first rotation. Bad side is when you're trying to cap it on P2 side. You spawn on P4 side basically, just because it's hard to get to the A point. And I think OpTic were on that side first half, and I think G2 was up 2-1 going into the second half, and then OpTic are able to chain 3. But G2 were up at one point in this overload, and OpTic were able to come back, I believe, if I'm remembering that correctly, and OpTic able to move on, and they go to winners finals to play FaZe on Sunday. Then we go down to losers. We have Gentlemates versus Koi. Toronto able to take this one. Really good map one out of them. Really good series for them. Kleenex. Oh no, it was Kips. Kips with a 1.07. 93 kills. Wow. Good map good series from Kips here. Gentlemates able to win the search and destroy, but other than that, not able to win this map. Or the series. Map 1 was pretty dominant. Not a good map out of Envoy on the Scar. Even Ghosty and Neptune. Sib was shooting, though. He was trying his best to keep them in this one. Envoy was having a rough one for sure. Sib started out the map with a 3-piece. But Kleenex and Kips both having good maps for them. Trying to keep them into it. Kleenex, especially with 106 seconds of time, 1.45. Kips putting out the absolute dammy. 35 kills as well. So really good map out of him. Toronto start out up 60 points after the P2. P3 from Gentlemates, try to keep it close. There was a point, I think it was this P4 or P3, that Gentlemates kind of made a little push. And then right at the end of the P3, they got flipped into green, and Koi were able to make the rotation or spawn up on new, keep that P4 pretty heavily in their favor. You know, it was about 30 to 10 points. Then it goes into the P5, and it was a pretty similar thing. They kind of flipped him into the back right at the end of it. Gentlemates definitely had the opportunity to have some good holds. They were new for P4 on this one. If they change that P3 to P4, it becomes like a close game. But they were unable to do that, and Toronto just take the map. Goes to a map 2, Scar, Search, and Destroy. Gentlemates look pretty good on this map, actually. Sib 10 and 5. I think Ghosty was like dropping a donut for a while. Then he able to pop a 2-piece in the one round and, you know, get some kills. On the other side, it was pretty much just Kips fighting back. He was definitely the last alive quite a bit, and he had a few where he was like getting the kills. But you know, able to get 5 first bloods to Toronto. I talked about how they're not a scamming team. 4 first bloods for Gentlemates, but I don't think there were any where they like gave away lives, like they lost a 3v2. I think it was more like a lot of the tradable ones where it was like a 1-for-1. I don't remember off the top of my head any that were like scammy. I think there might have been like maybe one. But overall, good map from Gentlemates. I thought if they went to map 5 that they might have won this one. Goes to exposure overload. And this one Toronto is able to take. Gentlemates having these really gritty overloads where they're like down and they make a last second push. Envoy, again, not really having a tough, great map. On the other side, everyone negative. So Gentlemates able to outfry him, but not able to win this map. A lot of good caps from Toronto. They had one where they like landed into the bomb and got the cap. So a little bit of an unfortunate, you know, cap for Gentlemates that it happened. But then I think they got one back in a similar fashion where they kind of landed in the point and able to, you know, win that one, like get the cap basically. But overall, really good map from Toronto, able to take this one 4-5. Then it goes to the Den Hardpoint. Really good map out of CleanX, especially really good map out of Insight. 162 seconds of hill time. I don't know how this guy always has hill time, but he's also like frying at the same time. Like it seems like he just doesn't leave the hill. Ghosty and Neptune having decent maps. This one pretty close, I would say, but it was again kind of close at the end. They made a last second push. Really good P2 here from Toronto to extend this lead. Basically go up about 70 points here after only being about 30 points here, going into that after that P1. So really good P2 there. And then they have a really good P4. So those two hills right there kind of gave them that separation that they needed. Almost go up at 100 points there, going into that third rotation. Gentlemates able to fight back on a P1, P2 chain. Right here, it was one of those, like, if Gentlemates, you know, like, they didn't get any time, they didn't make it, but, like, actually, I think they had the rotation, they still broke. I think they gave up, like, some good scrap time at the end of this P3, but Joe Deceives just rotated early. Ghosty could have gotten there technically, but he would have had to become the fastest person in the world, and Toronto able to close it out. But definitely a close series. This P3 definitely got interesting. You know, it was one of those ones where it was like Toronto needed 12 points after that P2, and they're only able to get 9 points at P3. So Gentlemates definitely had a good P3 hold. It was one of those ones, if they could have kept the spawns and got to P4, they might have actually been able to win this one and, you know, see a Toronto choke, and it goes to a map 5. But Toronto able to close it out and continue their run. Gentlemates run ends there in a 6th place. G2 play Thieves. Only map they're able to take is a Search and Destroy in around 11. MVP of the series was Neum, so really good map out of series out of him with a 1.26. Scrap again putting out damage. This guy just puts out damage, it seems like. Able to take the Colossus hardpoint 250 to 170. Pretty close map all the way through that first rotation into that P1. But then Thieves able to take that whole second rotation basically. Go up about 60 about 60 points here. After that second rotation, goes in the P1, but the P2 they just held the P2 down money. Able to take this map 1 in this Colossus hardpoint. Then we go to a 6-5 Colossus Search and Destroy. G2 able to take the 6-5. You know, they had a really good map here. pretty back and forth. Thieves with a lot of first blood, so Thieves is a little bit of a scammy team in Search and Destroy. But Colossus, again, is one of those maps where it's like, you get one and then you get insta-traded. Like, it's so weird how the map works just because it's so close, especially with the mid bang out. But super back and forth here. G2 able to go up 4-2 at one point. Thieves able to win 3 straight, but then G2 able to close it out, go into that map 3, where Thieves just kind of dominate. Overload is definitely their game mode. They're a very good Overload team. Really good map from Neum here, especially, but G2 on the other side. You got Skies with a 0.52 and Escher with a 0.6. Not going to help your team out at all. One of those ones where it's like, if a BZ's shooting well, Hydra's shooting well, even Neum, like Neum is a very good sub player. He's able to take out both weapons. So when you have someone like that, it's kind of tough. But this is a really good map out of them. Neum was making some very, very good plays, popping some absolute pieces. Then we go to that map 4 with the Den hardpoint, and this one was not close. 100-point club them. Everyone negative. Best KD they had was from Mamba with a 0.85. Most damage was Skies 2,500. On the other side of BZ, not really doing much. 133 seconds, kind of just soaking. 15 and 13, not doing insane things, but didn't really need to be. Hydra and Scrap kind of putting out that damage and just getting the kills. Hydra doing his thing, just running the muck on the map. This one was not very close at all. After the P3, they're up 100 points. Closest it got again, basically, was after that second P1. But this barely made it back to a second rotation. So, they're just getting chained. It really is what it is. The only really good hill they had was that first P4. They get about 40 seconds on that first P4, but other than that, it was pretty dominant by Thieves, and they're able to close that one out and move on. G2 top 6 as well. Then we go to our losers semifinals, and Toronto able to beat Thieves 3-0. Send them packing in that 4th place spot. They win that map 250 to 188. MVP was Insight, having a really good map here. UK buff was definitely giving them some confidence. Kips, though, having a great series. On the other side, Scrap and Hydra not really having the best series. Scrap especially, very uncharacteristic series. Still putting out damage, but he just wasn't getting the kills. They were just not falling. Map 1 was 100% that way. 0.69 with 4,000 damage, so had tons of damage. Basically 1.5k. 1,000 damage was the closest damage on his team that anyone had to him on this Den hardpoint, but it's just kills weren't falling, getting people one shot, but I would like to see how many assists he had. He probably had an insane amount of assists. On the other side, though, Insight with a 1.52, so he was gunning as well with almost 4k damage. Pretty close map. Thieves actually had the lead, even though they were getting outslayed. Thieves able to, be up about 40 points after this P3 on the second rotation, sorry. But Toronto with a great P4 hold here. Get about 40 seconds on that P4, tie up that game. And then they chain a P1, P2 here on that 3rd rotation. They go from about 119 points to 240, so 120 points in 3 hills is an absolute insane chain here for them. Only allowing Thieves to get to hit about 20 points. This was one of those ones where you're watching and they're just getting every kill. Thieves went on a streak of where they just got nothing. Nothing was going their way. Constant 4 deads. The P1 was like one of those ones where it was like, holy shit, they can't even like get close to the hill. They were just getting killed left and right. They'd find like one and then they'd get 2-piece. So not a great map for them at all. Did very uncharacteristic map for Thieves here, especially because they started out so hot. Map 2, pretty similar thing. Toronto was able to find a lot of first bloods here, especially in that mid play. Kips had a great play where previously someone slid mid and his boy got one but then got traded. The next time they did it, he was right behind him and able to get the trade to make it a 3v2 situation. So played very, very well. Insight wins a 1v1 that definitely helped out. I think it was the 4-2 rounds. It was this round. It was good to make it 3-2. It would have been 3-2 instead of 4-1. Insight wins a 1v1 against Neum, I think. Neum actually almost having a 1v3 or something like that. Or 1v2 maybe. So definitely a game changer because that makes it 4-1. Thieves able to win 2 straight to make it 4-3, but then Toronto able to close it out in a 6-3 fashion. Using their numbers well. Insight, I think, is their sniper, and I didn't really see him have the sniper that often. On the other side, Jodeci's and Kips having really good maps here, especially Kips. He's a great search and destroy player. Goes the exposure, overload. BZ having a pretty good map, Neem as well. Scrap again, not really having a best map here. This one really wasn't doing anything. Kleenex and Thieves not really having the best map, but Insight and Kips again having a really good series. I'm surprised Kips did not win the MVP of this one. He had a great series here. Every map he was doing his thing. Overall KD wise on each map he was doing his thing, and he was doing his thing just in general. But Insight still had a great series. Toronto able to just get a lot of caps here. Thieves did make it a little bit close at the end. It was one of those ones where they could have gotten it. I think Toronto parked the bus at the end of this map, because it was one of those ones where they definitely just could not have gotten it. Even if they got a kill, it was like they were going to spawn right there. It was only with about 30 seconds left, but it was a good heads-up play just to bring it into their spawn. They brought it into the super-duper depth of their spawn. Thieves would have had to have an insane 4 dead. And one of those, exposure is one of the maps when you park the bus, you're spawning in absolute Narnia. And if they get a 4 dead, they can get pushed up because you're going to have to fight someone before. So they get pushed up. Even if you kill them, they're going to spawn right next to the bomb and be right back in the play. So very good map out of Toronto. Move on into that losers finals. Then we head to our winners finals match between OpTic and FaZe. OpTic are able to take this one 3-1. A really good map here out of Hook. Absolute legacy series here for Hook in the winners finals. 1.35, 101 kills. Putting out just enough, just a little bit less than Mercules. On the other side, 04 and Abuza not having the best map series here. OpTic able to take the exposure. Map 1 in a very dominant fashion. 1.32 from Hook here. Dashy doing his thing as well, putting out the Damien Mercules. All of OpTic positive. On the other side, Abuza and Simp not really having a great map. OpTic started out a little slow. FaZe able to take that. First 3 hills, basically. OpTic with a great P4. Pretty mixy for the rest of the hills, all the way to that second P3. And then OpTic able to chain a pretty good P4, P5 together. Be about 40-point lead going into that third rotation. And then at that point, you just need a few seconds. I think OpTic had the end control of that exposure. And they're able to win that one on that P1. Then it goes to a raid S&D, which is, as far as we've seen, OpTic's been very dominant on it. They look very good on it. But Simp having a great map on this raid S&D, 13-6. No first bloods. 04 and Abuza both with their first bloods. On the other side, OpTic not having the best match. Shotzzy definitely getting shut down, where normally he's the one that's kind of getting lost. They did a good job of keeping track of him. 04 had a decent map, but it was really Simp and Draza. FaZe able to go up 3-1 at one point, goes back and forth until they close it out. Pretty defense-oriented play. 5 plants for FaZe, only 2 for OpTic. They win 6 of the 4 opening duels. Just getting the kills. OpTic only with 1 defuse. So, the FaZe got the bomb down. They were basically winning the map in that sense. Goes to a map 3. Where OpTic's able to take it in the overload on Den. Pretty good map for them. I like their Den overload because it allows them to get very pushed up. Shotzzy and Hook are very good at that map, getting lost in their spawn and stuff like that. I said they get very hit or miss map for them. They either are dominating and just in your spawn the whole time, or they're cooked basically. So one of those maps where it worked out for them. Hook again having a great map and series here. Mercury's putting out damage, going -3, not that crazy. On the other side, nothing too crazy. 0.78 from 04 is probably the worst. Map 4, Scar, pretty dominant from OpTic. Super duper dominant. 04 with 0.58. Everyone positive. 1.6 from Merc. 1.48 from Hook. Pretty close after the third rotation, but first rotation, OpTic taking 80-point lead. Good-ish P1, but again, P1's pretty mixy. Then OpTic have a great P2. That's a pretty good money hill there. Able to have a good dominant stretch. Honestly, the biggest one is the P4 on the first rotation. A 50-point P4 is very impressive, not allowing FaZe to get any hill time on a P4. Very, very impressive. Not really much time ahead on that P5, but second rotation, able to just use that lead, and OpTic able to close that on P5 and win this 1-3-1. So OpTic heads to grand finals, and FaZe enter that to losers finals. FaZe able to go down the losers finals, take out Toronto here in losers finals in a 3-1 fashion. MVP of this series would have been Abuza for sure. 0-4 again, having a good series though, 97 kills, so very good map from him. Insight and Joe Deceased trying their best. Kips and Kleenex not really having the best performance. Real shout out to Neum and Kips actually. Neum getting a top 4 on his first LAN event, and Kips getting a top 3 on his first LAN event. So the Huntsman previous players have been doing very, very well. It does help that they are on a good team, but you know, some other players might not have had the same effect that they did on these teams, especially since both these teams didn't really perform at Major 1, and now they get a third and fourth, so definitely upgraded their teams, and that's very good for them. Map 1 though, FaZe able to take it 250 to 240, pretty close map here, pretty back and forth. Abuza again starting out with a great map 1, similar to I believe the Gentlemates series, 42 and 23, 1.83 with 5k damage, absolute shooting. Especially helps that he did that when Draza was not really shooting his gun that well, but again, they got the win, so all that matters. Probably doing the little things. Super duper back and forth map. This was very, very mixy. Largest lead was probably here, about a 30-point lead from Toronto, but other than that, it was very, very back and forth. Not really any money hills. I would say this is probably the biggest gap that any team had on hill sense. Toronto have a 50-point P4, so very good hold out of them. Actually, when this happened, I thought that Toronto actually was going to win this map. I was like, oh shit, here we go, Toronto. Then that P1, pretty split. FaZe get a really good P2 hold, but then again, Toronto with a great P3, only need about 10 points to win, and then FaZe just able to close it out on that P4, able to get 40 seconds and not allow Toronto to touch the hill. So Toronto definitely probably rushing it at the end there. FaZe were definitely getting the kills, but at the same time, it's one of those ones where it's like, when you need 10 seconds and the other team's on it, just play something together. They started getting a little solo pushy and definitely did not help. Toronto gets the exposure, hard point, and they played great on this one. Kips had a very good exposure, or search and destroy, sorry. Kips had a really good map, 4 first bloods. Joe Deceased also doing his thing, but Kips was definitely the standout player on this search and destroy. He was doing unbelievable. FaZe are now 2-0. And then Toronto win 3 straight. FaZe tied up. Toronto win 3 straight again. They looked very good on this map. They looked very in control of the map. Again, Kips was playing very, very well, getting a lot of first bloods. FaZe didn't look great on this exposure search and destroy, which was, I guess good for them. Like, not great for them, but Toronto just looked very good on it. Toronto's a good search team. They lost to OpTic, I believe, on this map, but, it's a good map for them, and it ties it up at a 1-1 series. We go to a map 3, and Insight, 1.21, only 1 positive. Kleenex not really having a great map on the exposure overload, which, again, was a pretty good map for them previously in this tournament, but FaZe able to have a pretty dominant map, 0-4 with a 1.68, and Simp with a 1.23. When you got those two guys, especially on overload frying, that means they're up in your base, absolutely shitting on you. Your life is living hell. They are very good at doing that and just getting pushed up. And it's a tough thing to be around. Like 27 and 32. Like, these guys had 59 combined kills together as a sub duo. So it's just unfortunate, to say the least, that they were just doing that to you. But FaZe have a very good map here, able to close it out and go up 5-3 and win this one to make it a 2-1 lead. Then it goes to an exposure, hard point, so 3 exposures back-to-back, pretty snooze fest to watch. Pretty close map here, but Draza and Abuza, now it was the AR's turn to have a good map here, I guess, on the exposure, and they're able to take this one. Toronto have the lead majority of the map, which is pretty unfortunate. Goes to that P4 where FaZe is able to chain a P4. Toronto had a good P3, able to take a 50-point lead, basically, actually 60-point lead, and then FaZe able to basically get 50 points right back on that P4, so tough for Toronto. Gets to a pretty mixy P5, and then FaZe able to take a very good P1. Toronto gets no time, and FaZe gets 36 seconds of hill time on a P1. They looked pretty dominant, closed it out on that P1. Move on to winners finals, and a lot of people are probably going to talk about it, how there's the winner finals cheat or losers finals cheese, where if you lose winners finals and then you go to losers finals, you kind of win again. You played, and then you play again going into that grand finals, which was against OpTic and FaZe. OpTic already had beaten them previously on Sunday, but FaZe able to win Major 2, 4-1 against OpTic. Respawns were not looking great from OpTic here. Not at all. It just wasn't really a great performance from them in that sense. All of them negative. Really bad map series from Hook after having such a dominant one in that first matchup. Mercury's also not doing his best, but honestly, none of them really were. Only one negative on FaZe was Draza. Really, really great performance from 04. He showed up big time in the grand finals, especially the map 1. And the search and destroys, actually, especially the exposure search and destroy. He had a great play to start out that one. Simpto also doing his thing. Definitely not saying he didn't do his thing. Even Abuza, he had his moments where it was just huge. That guy in Hardpoint was doing his thing. Map 1, though, Colossus, Hardpoint. FaZe were pretty dominant in this one. It was over, I want to say after the second rotation, it was basically over, but FaZe able to be up 80 points-ish in that first rotation. It was close for the first two maps, but then first two hills, but then they get a great P3, P4 combination. Really ahead of that time. I don't know if it was the first rotation or the second rotation of P4 that OpTic was out, and they kind of let FaZe have the back spawn, and they tried to play it from the front, and then FaZe just instantly broke from the front, or from the back, and OpTic was spawning out. I don't want to say Shotzzy scammed, but he spawned up like outer container of blue side, and then decided to hit old and instantly died off of hill, like with like as the transition was happening. And it was one of those ones where it was like, if he gets the kill, good, but at the same time, like maybe just hit through mid and watch the mid so your other three boys can watch the front, or watch that tunnel route, like one of those two things. But he decided to hit old, dies, someone hits through mid from FaZe, pinches, and then they just have that natural pinch where Shotzzy spawned it up. Really good map from FaZe. They played great. Everyone negative on OpTic, basically a 0.7 all around. On the other side, 04 with a 1.76. He was absolutely in control of this map. Simp, same thing. They were both just very in control of this map. In the mid control, getting pushed up. P4 was one of those hills where they had a lot of time on those P4s. And it was all because they were just so far pushed up into the OpTic spawn, basically, that you're fighting them, you're dying and fighting someone almost instantaneously off your death. And that's tough to play against. OpTic played a raid S&D, only map they're able to win. I thought this was going to be a series just because of this map and the way Shotzzy was playing in this map. Shotzzy was doing whatever the fuck he wanted on this raid S&D. He was absolutely everywhere, doing whatever the fuck he wanted on this map. Able to dominate pretty well. He was making all the right plays, looking good. OpTic was playing their numbers, their trades well. This was one of those ones where, OpTic has 3 first bloods. But again, it's one of those ones where I don't think FaZe was scamming. I don't remember. FaZe did. Oh no, they did scam one. They got a first blood on Hook, the 1 round. Shotzzy's able to find a Booza in the back, able to get another one, and then they win that one. But that was one of the first bloods. I don't remember any of the other ones where it was like scammy. Maybe they did scam. Maybe 04 scammed once. I forget. It didn't seem like they were scamming that much. A lot of them seemed like 1-for-1 trades, which is unfortunate. There was a 4v4 retake, actually, now that I'm thinking about it, where they scammed their first blood. OpTic. Did OpTic have a first blood? I think OpTic had a first blood there. But really good map out of OpTic. They played great. Shotzzy was just behind them a lot in that map. Able to kind of just get lost. The Scar, Overload, FaZe were up 3-1, I believe, in the first. Yeah, 3-1 after first half. And they were pretty dominant. First couple minute was like a search and destroy. FaZe able to break through that, get that top blue control, get 2 caps. OpTic able to get 1 back. FaZe able to score a third going into halftime and go up 3-1. OpTic flip sides, able to start getting some wind under their feet after later on into that second half. Tied up at 3-3 with a little bit of time left. Goes into an overtime. They streak. Shotzzy gets a streak because of how he was moving. Oh my god, that play is unbelievable. I wish I could find that play actually and show it, but unfortunately, you can't show long times of clips. But Shotzi was absolutely moving on that P2 or on that top blue when they got those 2 caps. He was popping pieces left and right. Crowd was going crazy. I was like, oh, here they are. Here's OpTic. He gets a streak in overtime. He ends up streaking. They don't find anyone. And then Simp checks a little rack corner that Mercules was in and able to find him, go up 4-3. OpTic able to get it back to 3-3, get it to 3-2. Shotzi chows the bomb on top plane heady. He dies, makes it a 2v2. 2v2, I believe it was Hook and Dashy in a 2v2 against Draza and Abuza. And FaZe able to close out the overtime and win that one in overtime. Go up 2-1. Go to exposure, hardpoint, and it was pretty similar to the map 1. FaZe were in complete control. Abuza and 04 were doing their thing. Abuza got like 2 cruise missiles, Simp as well. OpTic actually up though after that first P4, but then P5 for FaZe, able to bring it back. It was a tough P5 from OpTic here, letting it get so close. You know, they get basically a full 60 on that P5. OpTic gets 0 time. FaZe did a good job, though, of giving up that P4 after a while, not hitting it anymore, and setting up for P5. So good on them to just kind of, you can have it, we'll go new. Pretty mixy all the way through until the P3. FaZe able to get a pretty good P3 hold. OpTic gets about the first little bit initial of it. FaZe able to get that P4 time. OpTic have a pretty good break on the P4. But FaZe able to chain a P4, P5 basically. They go about 30 points into that P5, and then they close it out on the P1. FaZe got the end of that P5, and I think it was off a cruise. No, they actually didn't end up cruising. I thought Abuza was cruising, but he actually ended up not cruising on that P4. They rotated early to the P5, and he was watching like P3 side, top window and that sort of stuff. He was in the spawn side of that. And I thought he was going to cruise. It looked like his character wasn't moving, but they ended up not cruising and just getting the kills. And they were able to get that about a 30-ish seconds of that hill and then close it on the P1 to go up 3-1. And it goes to a exposure, search, and destroy, like I talked about. Really good map out of 04 on this one. 14-8 and Abuza 11-6. Mercules 10-7. He was trying his best, had a pretty good clutch up on the 1 against Abuza. He defused the bomb, ninja defuse. I believe it was in this round, make it 3-2. 04, though, had a great play. All FaZe hit through P5, and he sat in the back spawn, have a great natural pinch as his teammates show. Able to find 3. Shotzi finds 2, but FaZe able to close it out. OpTic able to get 1 back. FaZe get 1 back. OpTic get 1 back. Then the Mercules 1v1 against Abuza. He's able to, it was actually a 2v2. He gets the trade and just hops it. 04 with 5 first bloods is absolutely absurd. FaZe able to win 2 in a row. OpTic able to win 2 in a row. And then FaZe able to close it out on the last 2. The last round was not very close at all. OpTic kind of just, Dashy, I think, gets picked. He had the sniper P5. Then they run down, I think it was Shotzi. Then Hook falls. Mercules left in a 1v4. He finds 1. Ends up falling, and FaZe win Major 2. Very good out of them. Can't say anything. Not like they're not deserving of it. They were definitely that second team that everyone picked. It was OpTic for sure, and then FaZe was there, but FaZe, Thieves, and Miami were the teams that definitely people thought were going to be the team that could upset OpTic, and FaZe did it. They looked very good. Very good for 04 and Abuza. They silver surfed all of last year. Lost to OpTic twice in the big ones. Lost to Thieves once and FaZe once. So very good out of them. OpTic back-to-back second places though. So they're kind of silver surfing this year. They kind of remind me of Cold War FaZe or Vanguard FaZe where they're clearly the best team, but for some reason when it comes to LAN they just keep getting seconds. It's one of those ones where I wonder if they won't care as long as they win champs again. It's one of those kind of things where it's like, oh, if we lose every single one and come second and then win champs and EWC again, do we give a shit? But I don't think they're thinking about champs right now. They're probably thinking about how the fuck do we lose again? But overall, great tournament. Fans were unbelievably insane. UK crowd's going wild from what I saw online. Apparently there was some beefs between the Gentlemates fans and UK fans, but there's a lot of beef just between those people in general. Overall, great LAN event, great Call of Duty. There is a 2-week break though from the CDL, which is unfortunate, but we will be back for the Call of Duty, content and stuff like that. Probably do a reaction video or something like that to maybe one of the hard points, something like that. But overall, really good major, and yeah, that's gonna do it for this Major 2 recap. If you enjoyed the video, drop a like, subscribe, turn on notifications so you can see my next videos. Until next time, I'll see you next one. Peace.